Well, I am pleased to welcome John Housego today. John is the MD of Aquascot, a business with a nationwide reputation for quality seafood and one that's been in employee ownership since 2016. John, welcome.
Thank you.
John has kindly agreed to be interviewed today, so I have 8 or 9 questions to ask John, and looking forward to him sharing his experience and knowledge of employee ownership companies with us. So, John, if I could start by asking you, what type of company or culture, what other organizational characteristics do you think most suit an employee ownership model?
Well, it depends who you talk to. My personal view is that any business suits an employee ownership model. How difficult or easy it is to be successfully transferred from private ownership into employee ownership can vary considerably, and a lot of that is around the owner's intent and the direction of them and the existing culture that exists in a business that's considering it. There are different challenges to being an employee-owned business. The stakeholders have obviously changed, and what I would call inverting the pyramid from a traditional ownership down model to an ownership up model. So the stakeholders are now at the top, and us as leaders are now at the bottom, as essentially serving the team rather than serving our stakeholders. So that transition can be difficult for people to get through. And depending on the circumstance that the business is in at any one time, that transition, that journey can take a while to happen, or it can be very quick. So cultural impacts are the biggest, more than sector or business. Obviously, I'm in a manufacturing company. My history is in a manufacturing company that's been employee owned. So that is people working, not in the service industry in desks. It's on the shop floor making stuff. And but a lot of the businesses in Scotland tend to be service at the moment. But I see no difficulty in any business doing it.
So essentially, any business could move towards employee ownership.
Absolutely.
And I'm conscious, John, that you weren't with Aquascot when they first began their journey to employee ownership. But from the time that you have been with the company, what do you know of the background of the previous management and the shareholding and structure of the business?
So I know quite a bit, because I was actually a non-exec in 2008 with Aquascot. I was brought in to help the transition. So when the previous owners decided and sat down and go, what's the legacy for this business? What's our ultimate goal? Back in 2006-07 timeframe, and 2008, they decided the employee ownership model fitted for them, and that was partly because of by then, Aquascot was a dedicated supplier to Waitrose, so they had a lot of exposure to John Lewis partnership model of way of working and the benefits they saw from that. So they had first-hand experience of working with that company. Then when they came up to make a decision, then it was about employee ownership as being the way forward, and then working out financially how could that happen. And then they pulled me on board because I used to work for W.L. Gore and Associates out of Livingston. We'd won Best Company to Work for 2004, 2007. So we were in the news quite a bit around that time, or Gore was in the news quite a bit around that time. And I'd already, because of that, back in 2005, Aquascot had come down and talked to Gore about culture and how does it work and what was the difference. So we had a relationship. Then when they decided to move to employee ownership, it was, John, would you like to come and join us and help us transition?
And was there anything in particular that made the previous shareholders management drawn to EOT, or why did they think it was a good exit route for them?
For me, it's all about intent, Donald. So their intent was, they built a business in the Highlands, in Olness, and they're all passionate champions about the region and the area, and other sales put at risk the jobs and the location. So the business could easily have been sold and bought out by a bigger company,
Mm-hmm.
and the jobs would have moved,
Mm-hmm.
almost certainly would have moved to some other company in some other location.
Mm-hmm.
So they already had always had the intent of creating a Highland-based enterprise of some sort that would outlast them as a legacy. So centered on the Highlands was part of it, but also creating an environment socially and locally to an employee ownership business was something that they were passionate about and wanted to deliver, and employee ownership was the only one that did that for them.
And how does employee ownership impact the culture of the business, and how much consideration was given to that? What kind of weighting was given to the cultural aspects compared to the legal and tax advice at the time of the transition?
Well, legal tax advice is dead easy. It's just straightforward, go through the process, you're done. If you get the cultural issues wrong, that can be you done. Right? Because the transition is radically different in concept. So in application, it's really about an understanding of what's important and why is it important, and how do we do work. So Aquascot had done some work back from 2005 around, to some degree, purpose. Why are we here? What are we trying to do? And then over a period of time later, they worked through values and stating how they wanted to do work as part of that journey. The good thing about Aquascot was it wasn't a very short time frame; it was a long time frame. So it was 2008 to 2016. So there was a long transition period for people to get their heads around why is this different? What does it look different towards? And they migrated gradually. So the culture for me is all about behavior, but you need to be able to document and point to that behavior. And you need partners' input to what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. And we're not through that journey yet. We've got ways to go to be able to get to every partner so they understand what we stand for, what methods we stand for. And that has to be connected to policy and practice. So culture for me has to be living, and especially in an employee-owned business, in any business. If you're truly trying to engage the staff, it's got to be something they feel on a daily basis. And if it's just written on a wall, you're not feeling it.
No.
So it's got to manifest itself in actions, behaviors, and reactions to circumstances, and be reinforced. So culture for any successful business, in my mind, is key to that. And an employee-owned business, it's even more key because everybody's an owner. So everyone is deciding how they want their company to run and how it makes them feel. But to do that, there's the deconstruct of authority control of a sense, right? Where, the boss is the boss and the boss is boss. To a mindset of, no, everyone's just partners. We've just got different roles and commitments within the business that we need to deliver, and we're doing them differently because we have different levels of experience and skill and knowledge to deploy, right? But that doesn't make me as MD any better than anybody else. It doesn't. It's just I've got a different skill set and I've got a different task and a commitment at work. Is more far-reaching and broader than many. But everyone's voice is important, and we need to listen to them.
And what role did the vendors, the team that sold out, what role do they have in the business at that time, and as of today, are they still involved? What level of influence or control?
So at the start, the three owners basically would chair, financial director, and ops director per se of running the business. And we've actually just recently, one of the previous owners has actually formally exited the business for the first time and retired. But during this transition, they've gone through multiple phases. So we have we created an Aquascot trust So the trust actually is the owner of all the shares, and the trust then looks after and is custodians of the well-being of the partners within it. So the trust board hold the Aquascot board to account. But as part of that trust, we've got 2 elected partners that are elected from all partners to represent them on there, plus some external non-exec directors. And as part of that, we had a diversification strategy within our business to look at other investments and other businesses. So we've created other arms and other companies under the trust to look at new opportunities for us. So the Scottish Seaweed Company operating under Shaw is one of those businesses. So when Aquascot started to transition and we hired new people in, then 2 of the owners moved roles. So they hired a new MD. So the ops director MD moved to chair of Aquascot, and then the chair of Aquascot, who was one of the owners, moved to the chair of the trust. So they've been moving themselves away from the day-to-day over a period of time as we've hired new people in. And then when I came in last year, there was much more of a conscious effort around, right, how do we balance the succession planning going forward over the next year to give them options to leave the business and leave it in a secure intent. So there's a balance of leveraging the skills they've got in new ways, but also developing the local team to be able to take over those core knowledge skills in a sensible manner over a period of time, which is, as I say, it's taken 4 years after we became fully employee owned for the first of the owners to actually leave, even though they were just a partner, right? So they were no longer an owner, they were a partner. So they've taken on different roles. So one is currently trust chair, one is currently Aquascot chair, and they operate in the other companies as well in various roles, depending on what the circumstances.
Okay. Has the move to employee ownership changed the way that senior management are incentivized, or are they given share options or cash bonuses before or after?
So there's lots of ways of doing employee ownership. So you can have personal share options, you can have bonuses. We have gone directly into a John Lewis trust model where we have a profit share of the overall outcome rather than incentivize individuals. My own personal belief is that it's a bit like Animal Farm. You're more important than me because you've got more share options than I, right? So that changes your mindset. So in Gore, there was always an argument about how much you got paid, and it was confidential. One of the reasons for that was that it created a hierarchy in itself. And if you're looking at a truly strong cultural position, everyone should have a voice, and it shouldn't be dictated to by other factors that affect people talking up. So part of that is hierarchy, part of that is salary, part of that is how do you get paid. So my goal within Aquascot is to remove the barriers of voice and make sure people are recognized for the amount of contribution they make. So last year we introduced a recognition or reward process to actually vocalize those contributions that individual partners are making and breaking down some of the boundaries that we had put into how we pay people to reward those that go an extra mile, right? And that's really important because it's everyone should get a fair wage, but everyone should have an opportunity to grow and develop and grow their contribution, therefore increase their wage. But if we put barriers to that happening, such as salaries or titles or even policies and practice, then we're limiting the amount a partner can contribute to the business, and we should never do that because we're all partners, right? So why should I, as someone, limit you as someone else? My job as MD is to allow everybody to grow in an organized way, in a managed way that adds value to the business. But if we've got mechanisms that prevent that, and I would argue individual share offers, individual bonuses are actually more of a barrier than an incentive. Because if you get the mechanisms correct in the first place, everybody's comfortable with, well, I put in this amount, I'm getting this amount back, and it's about fair, right? So that's my mindset as an employee of business, because it's our business. So, it's our cash. We're spending our cash. How do we want to spend it?
Yeah, and I suppose, John, that approach unites people with a shared goal rather than a departmental goal.
Exactly. I mean, if you I hear some companies doing peace payments and things, and you've got, even on production lines, you've got one team fighting against the other team. Why would you do that?
Yeah.
It makes no sense to me at all. It's like having two tug of war teams. Why are you having tug of war with each other? Isn't the tug of war against your competitors or in favor of your customers? So that type of thing, isn't right for me, because if we've got people there that aren't adding any value to the business, and they shouldn't be in the business. So everybody's there is adding value to the business, because we need them all. Because if one's not there, we can't meet our business. Whether it's a guy packing a forklift truck and putting the fish on a wagon to go down to sell the wag truck, if he doesn't do that, doesn't matter how much fish we produce, we're not going to get paid. Right? And you go, well, is he more or less valuable than me as MD? Well, to some degree, he's more valuable, because I'm not putting the fish on the truck that's going to get us paid. So all of us add value. We just need to do it according to that rule and make sure that it's fair and the process is transparent. And fairness is a concept as well, in the sense that everybody's got their own sense of fair, and that's going to vary. So what you think is fair and what I think is fair is never going to be the same. But all we can do is, as a business, is strive to be as fair as possible and be transparent in the processes that we're using to do that. And people go, yeah, okay, that's okay. Right? The outcome they might not like individually, but at least they know there's been a process and it's transparent. It hasn't come from fresh air,
How has the makeup of the board changed since the company became employee owned? And are there employee representatives on the company board as well as on the trust board?
Yeah, so we have an elected body called the Partnership Council, who are made up of elected bodies from each of the departments, and they elect a chair, and they also elect the two trust directors that sit on the Aquascot Trust Board, but also the Aquascot director that sits on the Aquascot board. So there's partner representation at both of our board levels, if you like. The other piece is that we're really striving to get to grips with here is actually that Partnership Council hold the leadership team to account, and should be holding the leadership team to account. And I think COVID has really helped us understand that in a much better way. As soon as the COVID crisis hit, we, like many companies, we had a crisis meeting every day. How are we going to deal with this? What are we going to do? What are our key actions? And in those forums, we invited in the Partnership Council chair to be part of those leadership executive team discussions. And that way, we had a communication channel to all partners immediately established and representation done, which I think we've really learned how to do well over this last year, and COVID has really benefited us in that sense. And it's given the Partnership Council a lot more confidence, which is what I'm hoping to encourage, is the confidence to actually hold, whether it's me, the MD, or the ops director, or the financial director, the board people, accountable for the running of the business. Why are you doing that? Why have we done that and not that? And they're elected bodies. I say to my leadership team and the board is, they've got a mandate. We haven't got a mandate. I was appointed by the board. They've been appointed by their teams. So to some degree, if you think about that inverse pyramid, they've got more of a mandate than I've got at the moment with our policies and practice around how we're recruiting. Now, maybe that will change in future as we mature. But we'll see. And there are businesses out there that do appointments differently.
Mhm.
You don't get appointed from the perceived above. You get appointed by the team below.
Mhm.
So you're pushed up, not
Mhm.
pulled up.
Mhm. Mhm.
And that's a completely mindset. That's a cultural understanding and maturity
Mhm.
that we strive to achieve at some stage.
Mhm. And has the business seen any tangible changes in the way employees work since it became fully employee owned, in terms of levels of motivation or suggestions, proposals about changes in the business?
Um, so obviously, I've only been buried in the
Mm.
business for a year, and like most businesses, there's ideas and voice and changes that's been made. So the big things like ensuring that we're a living wage employer, ensuring that we've got consistency of practice across our teams, those types of things we'd done a while ago, but also working to create our value set with a much broader group of people. So I think somewhere between 40 and 60 partners worked on that process to actually vocalize how we wanted to operate. And that level of engagement is really important. One of our challenges is, like many manufacturers, we have a very diverse workforce with many languages involved. So having those conversations at the right level in the right language is tough for us. It's one of our biggest challenges. Um, but we're learning to learn capability that exists that we didn't know we were paying for. We didn't know things like Microsoft Word automatically translates, Microsoft Notes automatically translates, Teams chat automatically translates. So finding ways for partners to have a voice and have a say is really important for us, and we've developed that over the last 2 years, I would say, to another level of expectation. And from my own side of things, what I strive to do with partners is encourage them to challenge, right? Not aggressively, just ask why. Why did we do that instead of that? And the reason I encourage them for that is because there may be things that they've seen that we haven't seen.
Yeah.
As an executive team, and you go, "Oh, crikey, I didn't know that," or "We didn't know that," or "It hadn't raised." It's a big issue for you. So those communications, the partnership council helps with that, but our line management and line leaders need to be engaged in all of these processes too. So we as a company of people, have common understanding and appreciation of what our priorities are, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, even down to our financial positions, and can we afford to take a risk on something that might be wasted money, as against we'll save the money right now and then we'll do something later that's guaranteed to give us a return. Both of those things are valid options at times, but only if you understand the current financial position. So getting all of our partners to understand the current financial position to make those choices independently is all about communication. And I would say, over the last 4 or 5 years, that's dramatically improved from a traditional sort of owner parental caring sort of closed information stream to, hold on, we're all adults here and this is the real situation and you can all contribute. That doesn't happen overnight, and not everyone can make that journey. They don't want to know, right? But it's really important that you provide the opportunities for those that do can, right? And that's where it's all based around trust. And you can't, in my mind, especially in an employee-owned business, you can't manage to the 1% that are not trustworthy. You have to manage to the 99% that are trustworthy. And I would say my experience with Gore, it was the best place I've ever worked, but it's also the hardest place I've ever worked, in a sense that the tolerance was really low. People couldn't hide. People couldn't, take the mick, because the team basically killed them off. But if you're not going to work in my team, then get out of my team, right? Because we're here working together. And especially with an employee-owned business, that's the type of spirit that can start to manifest itself when you get this real responsible owner mindset in all partners.
Mm. And looking forward, say, to the next 3 or 5 years, what challenges do you think the business will face, and to what extent will the employee ownership help or hinder dealing with those challenges?
Well, I'm a passionate champion for employee ownership, so you know what I'm going to say. If you can get it right, it's a massive, massive benefit for us. And if you look at the stats, even just in COVID, the financial resilience, the reaction to COVID, employee-owned companies have outperformed just about in every single sector you can take the measurement of. So for me, there's a groundswell of information out there that just says employee ownership is better for business. It's better for the business. It's better for the individual. Now, if I look at our specific business, I mean, we're a food processor in a very competitive market. We work in UK retail, right, which is a very competitive market. Depending on Brexit and everything else, there are always competitive challenges that are out there to meet the need. And we're no different than anybody else. So we're pointing into Waitrose aspirations around what they want to do, not only from a product quality, value, taste sort of position, but also from a sustainability and environmental environment around where we need to go. So we've got multiple challenges. How do we get to carbon zero by 2030? How do we meet the commercial needs of our product that the consumer needs? How do we meet the taste and the quality issues that we need to meet to maintain our position where we are? They're not small challenges, and every business in manufacturing has got those similar challenges, unless you're perhaps more than cars that just say, no, we're going to do the same thing every year and just make cars because that's what we do, this car, and everybody just follows and will be this scale. And I absolutely believe that partners are the ones that deliver that, not individuals. The whole team collectively deliver that. But only if they know what the challenge is, and only if they know what they can do to make a change, and only if they know the change they make will help or not. And that's about tool sets, it's about organization. So one of our challenges was around the tools. We didn't have all of the tools to give us the data to be able to make the right choices. We're in the process of correcting that with some investments this year. Then our next challenge is, how do we leverage that data that we've got to make real improvements that then benefit our customer and our business as a whole? And I have no doubt that if we get the organization right and the vocalization and the forums right to do that, there's massive wins for us out there that will keep us successful.
That's great. John, really appreciate you sharing your experience and insights with us today. I don't doubt that the firm's clients, other people who watch this will benefit from that greatly. So thanks very much.
Pleasure.